industry in America would cease. Farms would become only self-sustaining units. Surplus food would disappear. Jobs requiring the work of more than one man would remain undone. Shipping and large movement of goods would come to a grinding halt. Hungry people would plunder and kill for food. Hence, we need to stop illegal immigration. All government, except for family, would cease to function. Emory, page 2. In 1930, America did not lack industrial capacity. We did not lack fertile farmlands. Skilled and willing workers were in abundance. We had an extensive and thorough transportation system with railroads, road networks, and waterways. We had the best communication systems in the world with telephone, teletype, a government mail system, radio. In the 1930s, America lacked only one thing: an adequate supply of money to carry on trade and commerce. In the 1930s, bankers, the only source for new money and new credit, deliberately refused loans to industries, stores, and farms. Payments on existing loans were required, but money rapidly disappeared from circulation. Goods were available to be purchased, and jobs were waiting to be done. But a lack of money brought our nation to a standstill. Thus, the United States of America was put in a depression, and bankers took possession of hundreds of thousands of farms, stores, houses. The people were told that times were tough and money was short. But these excuses are not enough to account for the millions of people who lost their life savings and their houses to pay off the greedy, evil bankers. Let's give you more of a background of what went on. World War II ended the Depression. The same bankers who had no loans for peacetime food and clothing suddenly had billions of dollars to loan for wartime army barracks and uniforms. With a sudden increase in money, people were hired, farms sold their produce, factories went to 2 shifts, mines reopened. The Depression was over. Many things are blamed for the Depression, but the truth is that a lack of money began the Depression, and an adequate supply of money ended the Depression. When we can see the disastrous results of an artificially created shortage of money, we can better understand why our founding fathers insisted on placing the power to create money and the power to control it only in the hands of Congress. The founding fathers believed that all citizens should share in the profits of the country, and therefore the federal government should be the creator of money. Since the federal Congress was the only legislative branch subject to the people at the ballot box, it was the only safe depository of so much profit and power. The founding fathers wrote out simply, "Congress shall have the power to coin money and regulate the value thereof." Prior to 1913, America had been a powerful and prosperous nation. But in December of 1913, Congress passed what has become known as the Federal Reserve Act. It simply authorized the establishment of the Federal Reserve Corporation, run by a board of directors, the Federal Reserve Board. The act divided the United States into 12 federal districts. This law completely removed from Congress the right to create money or to have any control over its creation, and the law gave those functions to the Federal Reserve Corporation. The propaganda claimed that it would remove money from politics and prevent a boom and bust economy from hurting the citizens. Can you believe that? And then we run into the Depression. In the same year, the IRS and the federal income tax was created. The people were not told, and most still do not know, that the Federal Reserve Corporation is a private corporation run by bankers and therefore is operated for the financial gain of the bankers, not for the good of the people. As I said, the IRS and the income tax was created the same year. The IRS's purpose was to take money from the people, redistribution of wealth, so that the government could pay its debts to the federal bankers. How did the United States become controlled by such economic interests? Griffin's premise is that historically, the only means by which a government has been able to subjugate a people to the government is through war. War is used to make the masses put up with all kinds of taxation, privation, any kind of hardship without complaint. Open war may not work, but there are several forms of war. And the typical war system may need to be replaced because it might be very difficult to make all the nations of the world agree to disarm and be disciplined by a world army, a condition we call peace. And you're glad to hear this, aren't you? Notice, though, that there are different ways to control a people. 3 types of conquest. First, you've got conquest by war, conquest by religion, and conquest by economics. In conquest by war, this method usually fails because, for some odd, unknown reason, captives hate their captors. Can you understand that? And they rise up and they overthrow their captors. And much force is needed to maintain control, so it makes it very expensive for the captors to remain in control or regain control of the disobedient little captives. Conquest by religion. Men are convinced they must give part of their earnings to their captors as obedience to God. Such captivity is vulnerable to philosophical exposure and armed conflict, since religion, by its nature, lacks military force to maintain or regain control. And then you've got conquest by economics. This takes place when nations are placed under tribute, without the use of visible force or coercion. The victims do not realize they have been conquered. Tributes collected from them in the form of legal debt and taxes. And they believe they're paying it for their own good or for protection from some enemy. Their captors become their benefactors and protectors. Option number 3 is the slowest conquest to impose, and it is often quite longest lasting, since the captives do not see any military force being used against them. And their religion is left more or less intact. They get to have free speech and travel, and they get to participate in elections for their dictators. And the instruments of their own society are used to transfer their wealth to their captors. And they don't realize they are conquered. The Federal Reserve System uses the methods of economic situations to conquer Americans. The Federal Reserve System is not part of the government. Most people think that the Federal Reserve banks are a branch of the U.S. government. It is not. The Federal Reserve Bank is a private company. And today, the Federal Reserve controls and profits by printing money through the U.S. Treasury, regulating its value. The interest on that money is collected by the Federal Reserve, not by the government, and gives us the national debt. The Federal Reserve banking system collects billions of dollars annually and distributes the profits to its shareholders. The Congress gave the Federal Reserve the right to print money through the U.S. Treasury